Hey guys, we're going to do a second day of this domain of a function. So this is kind of similar. There's going to be a little variation from the last video. So if you were a little fuzzy on that last video, this should kind of confirm what you're doing. Okay, I know this stuff's a little strange. But again, remember the domain of a function means what can the x value be? Like, what are you allowed to plug in for x? Now, remember, if you have a fraction, the bottom of the fraction is not allowed to be 0. But we don't have a fraction, but we have a square root. And remember, the square root is not allowed to be negative, because that's when we had to do that imaginary number stuff. So, again, what we know is the underneath part of the square root of the radical has to be greater than or equal to 0. Greater than 0 is positive, and equal to 0 is okay. You can have 0, but you're not allowed to be negative, so you couldn't be less than 0. So basically, you're allowed to have anything that's greater than or equal to 0. So remember, what we do, we take the underneath part of the radical. So this one's 4x minus 3. It has to be greater than or equal to 0. So that's really what we did on that last video as well. So whatever's underneath the radical, you set greater than or equal to 0. Now I'm just going to solve for x. So plus 3, 4x squared greater than or equal to 3. Okay, divide away the 4. So again, this is similar to that last video. Now this is going to have a little bit of a variation, and here is where that variation comes in. So again, remember, to get rid of x squared, we square root, right? Boom, square root. Okay, here is, now remember, you get plus or minus every time. When you square root, you get plus or minus, unless it's a story problem and you're trying to find something for real. Remember, then you can't have a negative if you're talking about a distance. That's the only time you can't use a plus and a minus. But in just general solving, we can have a value that can be positive or negative. Okay, here's the thing. Square root of 3 decimal. You can't break that down. So guess what? That actually has to just stay square root of 3. I mean, I don't want to turn that into a decimal. I can't square root 3. 3 is not a perfect square. Now, here's the thing. Square root of 4, 4 is a perfect square, isn't it? So actually, the 4 can become a regular 2, but the square root of 3 has to stay square root. And guys, this is where we're at right here. Plus or minus radical 3 over 2, or square root of 3 over 2. That is our answer. The 2 doesn't have a square root, but the 3 does, because square root of 3 was not a perfect square. Okay, now remember, now we just have to do this bracket stuff. Okay, we put a u in the middle. Okay, we got a bracket to the left, a bracket to the right. Remember, to the left is the negative, so negative. Now again, the fraction we have is radical 3 over 2. Negative radical 3 over 2 out to, remember, negative infinity. Now remember, we put a parenthesis on the outside of that one. Okay, and then the positive will be positive radical 3 over 2 out to positive infinity, and boom. There we go. There's our answer. So negative infinity, comma, negative radical 3 over 2. Okay, bracket, U shape, bracket, positive radical 3 over 2, comma, out to positive infinity, or just infinity. And that's our answer right there. That's the answer we have for that one. Okay, let's do another one together, and then we will do one for your homework. Okay. So we have f of x equals radical 16x squared minus 2. Okay, we want to find the domain. What is x allowed to be? What x values are we allowed to have? So again, take the bottom of that fraction. It's got to be greater than or equal to 0, right? Okay, plus 2 to both sides, plus 2. 16x squared greater than or equal to 2. Okay, divide away the 16, divide away the 16. So sec x squared x squared greater than or equal to 2 over 16, square root both sides. And we're pretty much at the end here again. Square root of 2 cannot be broke down. So that actually stays square root of 2. 16, though, remember, square root of 16 is a perfect square. So that can become 4. And then we put our plus or minus in. Now remember, I can't reduce 2 and 4. 2 is a square root. 4 is not a square root. Those cannot simplify or divide or anything like that. So here is my answer, radical 2 over 4 plus and minus. So again, remember, in the middle of the U shape, we have a bracket to the negative side, a bracket to the positive side. So to the left would be negative radical 2 over 4. So negative radical 2 over 4, comma, out to negative. Let me draw this well. Ooh, not bad, not bad. Okay, so there's my negative infinity. And then the positive radical 2 over 4, which I don't have to really write that positive sign, but radical 2 over 4 out to positive infinity. Remember, parentheses on the outside, on the ends of each of those infinities. And boom, there's our answer. Okay? So again, hopefully the second day here, this is making more sense. Again, you always get plus or minus when you square root. The negative goes on the left, like the left of the number line, out to negative infinity. You have that U, which stands for the union, which means both of these things are happening at the same time. And then the positive examples on the right, positive out to positive infinity, and that's your answer. There's your domain. Okay? So very similar problem for your homework. And again, enter it in the best you can. Okay, so we got f of x of radical 9x squared minus 5. Okay, so go ahead and solve that on a piece of paper, enter it into your journal, and you're done for the week. Okay? So have a good week, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.